Some would say this is their favorite part of the year, the offseason. Whether if it's the draft or free agency or both, it is a very exciting time of the year. Most players and teams, they have option A, option B, or if they're lucky, option C. But if they make the wrong choice, it could change their entire season. We're here today to recap what's happened so far in the NFL free agency, and we're here to also predict what's going to happen with the remaining top 20 to 25 free agents that do still remain. I'm joined by my co-host, Bakari Steve. How you feeling on this Tuesday morning?
Yeah, I feel good. I'm excited. There's a lot of news that's been happening. I'm excited to discuss it. I'm ready to get into it.
Absolutely. But this is your early reminder that if you do enjoy what you're seeing/hearing, go ahead and support us down below. We're nearing 100 subscribers. So, we couldn't be more grateful that, we're closing in on a mark like this.
Yeah.
And continue to support us. Hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and, be that 100 subscriber. But without further ado, I am your host, Owen Stiftar. We got some news to cover first, but then we're going to get to these free agents around the NFL. Just to keep you guys up to date, if you guys are out of tune, Chicago, they traded the number 1 overall pick to Carolina, which they received 2 first-round picks, a second, a third, and DJ Moore. DJ Moore, an interesting stat here before we get into the trade details, or I guess your thoughts on it. But DJ Moore has a career, in his career, he's had 5,201 receiving yards, and that would be the most in Bears franchise history. And he hasn't played there yet. But I just want quick thoughts. Which side of the trade do you like better? Do you like the Bears, or do you like Carolina taking that risk for a franchise-changing quarterback?
I love this trade for the Bears because I don't know. I feel like the last time we saw, a team really sell out on a top QB or to try and get a QB in the top of the draft was the 49ers, and we haven't seen much of Trey Lance, since they drafted him. He's had the injury issues and everything like that, and he could still turn out to be a great quarterback and worth it. But you just never know, especially, when you're drafting a position like quarterback to come in and be your franchise QB, leader of the future. I think Chicago understands that, much like the Eagles were with Jalen Hurts last year, they understand that they need to get Justin Fields, weapons on offense, defense, in line, and they understand that this was the first step in doing that. They can also get somebody, really good quality still at the number 9 pick. It's a top 10 pick, and you get 2 first-round picks, or 2 second-round picks as well. With that number 1 receiver, so I like this for them.
Yeah, it's crazy the asking price for a lottery ticket. Basically, there's 3 or 4 possible quarterbacks in this draft that could be worth your while. Whether if it's Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, it's crazy the asking price just to get the lottery ticket to pick one of these guys and hope that they're the right one in the class to change your franchise around. But I like the trade for the Bears. They moved down. They didn't need a quarterback. I'm happy they committed to Justin Fields. Mm-hmm. And, we're going to get into it later, but they're already making a lot of big moves today, and they still have over half their cap room left that they went into free agency with.
Yeah.
But Jalen Ramsey, he was traded to Miami. He was sent to Miami for Hunter Long, which is a younger tight end who has a career, I think his career stats are 1 catch for 8 yards, but I digress. And a 3rd-round pick. I believe this was just because Ramsey requested a trade, and, the Rams were like, hey, Ramsey, you won a Super Bowl with us. We're going to grant your request and send you where you want. I'm going to ask you 2 questions here. First, we're going to start. Is this a good look for the Rams? Granting Ramsey's request, even though they gave up, they're sacrificing what they could have gotten in return. Is this a good look for the Rams, though?
I think it is. I think, at this point in time with their roster, I believe that they kind of view that they might not have that same window for another Super Bowl like they thought. Matthew Stafford was declining last year.
Coming off of spinal surgery.
Yeah, a lot of people decline. Cooper Kupp was out majority of the season. Aaron Donald's stats went down. So were Jalen Ramsey's. I think they're just they want to kind of try and build something new. And it starts by, slowly but surely, sometimes getting rid of the veterans or people you had during championship runs and bring in new faces. Because, anything in the NFL can spark a Super Bowl run.
Yeah, so. And that's the thing, is that's how you consistently win over a long period of time is drafting good and building through the draft.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you again, as Browns fans, this might come as a biased answer from you, but is it worth it to go all in for one Super Bowl? Would you put yourself in the Rams' position with your favorite team to be like, hey, we're going to suck for the next 10 years, but we got a Super Bowl?
I'd say yes because, it's a Super Bowl. It's a championship. Nobody can take that away from you.
In history, forever.
Exactly. That means that, in one season of the NFL's existence, you were the best team, in the entire league. You had the best players on your team. So when you put it like that, obviously you like it looks a little bit different when you see it play out like the Rams did. Like I said, they had a lot of injuries. A lot of people kind of, not necessarily fall off, but they kind of declined a little bit. But, at the end of the day, though, everybody on that team is like, they have a championship winning head coach. They have a championship winning QB. Aaron Donald got a ring. So, you can't help but feel like they feel accomplished in some, sense, especially because they're all older, too.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. If I'm the Browns, I would trade every draft pick that we possibly could to get a Super Bowl. I would get a Super Bowl and suck for the next 10 years instead of just being a competitive team that almost gets to that point.
Yeah, you don't want to get caught in like the Buffalo loop or something
right.
like that.
Buffalo's a super talented team, and right now they're stuck because they have to compete, but they don't have really the high draft picks to build through the draft, I guess, unless they get some steals. But for this Rams position, I mean, they are screwed. I mean, they do have a lot of their returning stars, but they're in a bad position, and we're going to talk about it later, maybe with a possible quarterback for them. But, the Rams, I think it was worth it to have that one Super Bowl. Moving on to other news, we have Daron Payne. He signed a 5-year, $90 million extension with the Commanders. He is now the highest paid D tackle in NFL history, not named Aaron Donald. Robert Woods, he signed a 2-year, $15 million deal with the Texans. A question here. Many fans, believe that NFL owners or executives are colluding against Lamar Jackson. Any belief in that? Do you think they're colluding against him so he doesn't get the money that all of us really think he deserves?
I can't help but say that it certainly feels like it. This is probably one of those things where owners don't have to send out a secret memo to each other like, hey, we're going to do this. Make sure this happens. It's kind of one of those things where, unfortunately, you kind of saw the writing written on the wall. Deshaun Watson gets $230 million guaranteed, all $230 million of his contract guaranteed last offseason. And here it is, quarterbacks they're going to be like, okay, well, that's the new standard. And they want to try and get as close to that standard as they can get if they can't get exactly what they got.
Or go over.
Exactly. So, I saw somewhere that they kind of offered Lamar like in the Kyler Murray range. Actually, a less guaranteed money than Kyler Murray got, which is, crazy on its own. But, Lamar Jackson is saying, well, I've won an NFL MVP. I've won, I have a playoff win. I'm like 45-16 in a regular season. Yeah. I have an, insane winning record. I'm better than, the QB who got $230 million guaranteed. Now, whether that's true or not, to him, he's like, it is true. He doesn't have an agent, so he is, kind of negotiating his own, he's in uncharted territory and everything like that. But it certainly feels like it because you would expect that at least one other team, especially one who needs a quarterback, will be all in on somebody like Lamar, who's an explosive talent.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into it in just a little bit later as he's going to be one of those free agents we talk about. But moving over to just some quick news that we'll run through, some of the quick recap signings from yesterday and even a little bit into today. Speaking about the Browns, they did restructure Deshaun Watson's contract. Originally, the report said that we freed $36 million for the season. It turns out that it was end up being around 22, and the Browns have pretty much already spent that money as we brought in Dalvin Tomlinson, defensive tackle from the Minnesota Vikings. He should beef up our run defense. But other quick news here. Stop me if you want to talk about anything. But the Patriots, they traded Jonnu Smith to Atlanta for a 7th-round pick. A big fall off for Jonnu Smith. Jimmy G, he signs a 3-year, $67.5 million deal with the Raiders. Any thoughts on that? I mean, they're kind of staying lateral with going from Derek Carr to Jimmy G. I would argue they took a downgrade at quarterback.
Yeah.
But Jimmy G did say that he doesn't care if the Raiders go and draft a quarterback with the 7th pick this year. And I think the Raiders are now a spot for Anthony Richardson because he needs time to grow, and Jimmy G is a good bridge quarterback.
Yeah, it's when you have players like, you have Devontae Adams, you have Darren Waller, you still have Hunter Renfrow, you still have pieces on offense that can obviously make you a very high-powered offense with the right QB in a system. It kind of seems like they I don't know. They didn't have a real plan, maybe other than they probably thought about Aaron Rodgers after the Derek Carr, after they cut Derek Carr and decided they want to move on from him, and it just kind of feels like they didn't know how to really get the elite QB that they were probably looking for. So, like you said, you sign Jimmy G for 3 years, you at least have somebody who can mentor QB if you draft one, this year or next or whatever the case may be. And like you said, it does make sense for somebody like AR-15 to go there now, especially because they do have a veteran QB, like you said, a bridge QB, and it work out for both sides.
Yeah, and I mean,
G still gets to play, and AR still gets to
develop.
Yeah.
But this when I first got the notification that Jimmy G was going to the Raiders, I'm like, whoa, why? Why does this make sense? And then I thought about it, and when Josh McDaniels was with New England for all those years, he drafted Jimmy Garoppolo, and he was there when Jimmy Garoppolo started those 2 or 3 games, and he looked great, and then he was highly coveted. So it makes sense that Jimmy G and Josh McDaniels are reuniting, especially, this time they have a lot more talented weapons in Darren Waller and Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams. So I guess it makes sense, especially if Jimmy G is willing to develop a younger talent. But Austin Eckler surprisingly demanded a trade. Any thoughts?
I think this is one of those situations, he'll probably look for one, get a,
we'll talk about the possible teams later, but
yeah, he just wants his money pretty much, and he feels like what the Chargers are probably able to offer him or give him, he thought he was worth more, and he had a great season last year, so
yeah, he's led the league in touchdowns collectively over like the last 3 seasons for skilled positions, so Austin Eckler definitely deserves his money.
Yeah.
But don't we all, right? Don't we all want our money? 49ers, they signed Javon Hargrave to a 4-year, $84 million deal. The Chicago Bears went crazy. They signed Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, 2 inside linebackers, and offensive guard Nate Davis. And not to mention, they still have $56 million in cap space.
Yeah, like I said before, the Bears, they're definitely, they're doing the right thing as far as, they all in a span of, less than a week. They commit to Justin Fields. They go get him a number 1 receiver. They get more draft capital, and then they go and they buff their linebacker position, and they're starting to build that line for Justin Fields. They could be really dangerous. Even they're definitely going to show a drastic improvement this next season. But a couple of years, especially if Justin Fields' development goes the right way, they could be a really 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 nice team.
This is very exciting for the Bears, and I think that this just shows how good, or how impactful, that's the word I'm looking for, how impactful a good front office is.
Yeah.
When you have the right people making the right decisions. I had the conversation with my dad. I said, if the Browns don't work out 5-6 years, I wouldn't mind taking the Bears route. Trading all your talent away, tanking, I guess, for a year or 2. Mm-hmm. Pray that you get a number 1 or number 2 pick, a guy that can change your franchise, and go from there. Obviously, we're in a different position because we have a lot of money tied up in different places.
Yeah.
But the Bears are doing everything right. Patrick Peterson, he's signing with the Steelers on a 2-year deal. Offensive tackle Mike McGlinchey is signing with the Broncos. As we all know, Sean Payton does love his big tackles. Yeah. Jamel Dean, he's re-signing with Tampa, which was a bit surprising as he was rumored to Atlanta. But Atlanta still got their DB, as they got Jesse Bates. Jesse Bates is going there. He was linked to Cleveland, Cincy, Atlanta. But he's reuniting with some defensive coordinators over there in Atlanta.
Yeah, what is he, the 4th highest paid safety in NFL history? So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he definitely got his money's worth there. He's going to love Atlanta. Hopefully they can string together some. Hopefully they can get their offensive side, especially the QB situation, down packed, and they could be pretty good in a couple of years.
Yeah, Desmond Ridder has all the intangibles you want in a franchise guy. Big guy, big arm. He just needs to work on the small stuff. The accuracy and the decision making. But this is a bit older news, but Daniel Jones for the Giants, he signed a 4-year deal. A lot of money over there in New York. And then they also franchise tagged Saquon Barkley. He will be returning as a Giant next season. Center, Jason Kelce. He intends to return to Philadelphia. There's no deal that's set in stone yet, but he's basically said he's going to get a small contract from the Philadelphia Eagles and finish his career there. And the last couple news, Eric Kendricks, he goes home. He goes back to L.A. He signs with the Chargers. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it definitely benefits him. The Chargers are definitely, are never looking to not add talent, I guess, if that makes sense. So, I originally thought he was going to go to Arizona, but I love this pickup for the Chargers. I think I had somebody else going there later down that I can't wait to talk about that potential pairing up. But I love this Eric Kendricks signing with the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, not to brag, I mean, I think I had him going here, and I will also say that aside from Jason Kelce, I didn't really get another one right, but I'm gonna brag about Eric Kendricks. And then Sam Darnold, in other news, we know there's injury concerns with Brock Purdy. He's going to need surgery. And Trey Lance, we don't know what's going on with this hamstring. As we see in the NBA with Zion, it can keep you out for a long time.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold's going to the Niners. So, he might start off the season if Trey Lance isn't ready to go. NFL free agency, just so you guys know, it will begin, or it started, or it's going to start today at 1 p.m. I don't even what would that be? It's going to start around 1 o'clock today, I think, or noon Eastern.
Yeah, I think it's noon Eastern.
But regardless, teams will be able to speak with free agents 2 days before, and that's why we've seen those free agency signings so far. They're not made official yet. It's just the legal tampering period that the league allows owners and teams to communicate with players and, I guess, kind of get these deals set in stone for when free agency does become official. But today, like I said, we're here to predict the remaining top 25 or so free agents. And, plus we have some other additional pieces that could be very helpful for championship teams at the end. But we're not going to spend too much time on those guys. We'll quickly run through them. You ready?
Yeah.
We're going to start here with the big guys. We're going to start here with arguably the biggest name that could be on the move this offseason, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, it seems to be a done deal at this point that, well, I will say this. I have him going to the New York Jets. Mm-hmm. It seems to be like a done deal. I expect the Jets to have a huge offseason, and it all starts with Aaron Rodgers. My only question for them is how much of that cap hit are you going to have to pay to the Packers that Rodgers does have on his contract.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I do have Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets as well. Like you said, it's, it seemed everything, they just haven't really, closed the deal, so to speak. But, yeah, I agree with you. How much are they going to pay Aaron Rodgers? How much do they, are they going to take on with that? Because it'll definitely impact the other smaller free agency signings that they'll be able to do. But I think, with it all being said, the Jets, they have a young roster. They have a lot of guys that they, took through the draft that they still have under contract. And they have a lot of talented guys, too. So, even if they aren't able to get that many more people after Aaron Rodgers, I think, we saw it last year. Their team, other than the QB position, was really solid. And, Aaron Rodgers obviously comes in and changes expectations in New York.
Yeah, another guy I wanted to just throw out there, Mike White, a guy that played for the Jets last year. He's with the Dolphins now. So, Flacco's expected to retire. So, really, they only have Zach Wilson now. At this point, they're kind of in a corner. They're backed in a corner. They need to pull this trade off as the media wants it. Brandon Marshall's kind of been hinting at it in that interview he had with Rodgers.
Yeah.
And Rodgers said something's going to come soon. So I'm expecting at 1 o'clock or noon today Eastern, Rodgers will get an alert that he's going to the Jets.
Yeah, even Garrett Wilson and I think Sauce Gardner, they were both like, yeah, got some big news. You see the smile on our faces right now. So
Absolutely. Rodgers is a Jet most likely, just like Brett Favre did late in his career. But Lamar Jackson, he's arguably up there with the biggest name in free agency. Unfortunately, I don't have any shocker news here. I think he's going to go back to the Baltimore Ravens for 1 year. He's going to prove himself again, even though I don't believe he needs to. And he's going to be a hot commodity next offseason. But my question to you is, I guess how many more times does Lamar have to prove himself to get this money? Yeah, you mentioned some of the stuff earlier, but I'm going to reiterate. He's a 26-year-old quarterback, so he's young. He's a former unanimous MVP. He's led the league in passing touchdowns, which a lot of people don't know, but he's led the league in passing touchdowns. He's 45-16 as a starter, which is a 74% career win percentage. I don't know. How much more does he have to prove himself in this audition year, it seems like, for Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, well, I have him going to the back to Baltimore. I'll put that out there. I don't know how much he'll play this year. Maybe he holds out, tries to get a better contract. But at this point, like you said, with all these audition years for Lamar, it doesn't make any sense because what more can he prove to you that he hasn't already done? I mean, the only other thing he can go out and do is win you a Super Bowl, but he doesn't have the...
Only one team does it a year.
Exactly, and he doesn't have, the receivers or what you would need to do that. They rely on what he does, and, they try and say, well, you can do this, so go do it at the highest level, which he can't do that. Football is a team sport, as we all know, and like I said before, there's only so much more that he like. If you didn't want to pay him when he won MVP, when he as you see his record now, you see the team drastically decline whenever he's out, whenever he's injured. They easily win this playoff game versus or I wouldn't say easily, but imagine if Lamar Jackson was in that game instead of Tyler Huntley
against the Bengals.
Exactly. So I don't know. I don't understand why we keep seeing Lamar Jackson in these audition years, and each year he starts the year off on fire, and then unfortunately he gets hurt, which you could say last year he kind of just pulled a late season holdout by not coming back, trying to send a message or whatever you want to say. But it's getting kind of ridiculous that he has to keep doing this. He has to keep putting himself out on the line with no money guaranteed, and that no other teams even want to try and get him. So
yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. I'm not going to say Lamar's the best quarterback in the league. Trust me, I don't believe that, but super talented, and he deserves his money. Moving over to the running back position, we have some questionable guys here that reportedly are up for trade. We're going to start here with arguably the best running back in the league, but Derrick Henry. He's up for trade. The Titans are seeming that they're going to go in a rebuild direction. I mean, who do you think could acquire Derrick Henry if there were a trade to be done?
Yeah, I had the Buffalo Bills. I had the Bills because I feel like this is a team that has a lot of desperate players who want to win a Super Bowl or at least get to one. We see Stephon Diggs, come out multiple times and say, why can't we get over that hump? Why are we always stuck in this loop? I'm sure Josh Allen feels the same way. You have a lot of players, Tremaine Edwards, he just left. He probably got tired of, being in a loop or whatever it is. So, I think that they'll definitely try and, get a name like Derrick Henry. They'll probably be willing to do whatever it takes to get somebody like Derrick Henry because they'll believe, hey, we have an elite quarterback. We have an elite quarterback and receiver duo. So, Derrick Henry just gives us that added, he's been the best running back in the game, arguably, probably, forever many years now. So, this will definitely, I think, sway their interest as far as getting a big name that'll help them finally get to a Super Bowl.
I think that'd be an interesting dynamic for that Buffalo offense just because they are a pass-heavy offense.
Yeah.
And Derrick Henry's not necessarily a pass catcher. He's more so just a downhill runner. So it would be interesting to see, but I think it definitely gives them a lot more flexibility. You don't have to put so much wear and tear on Josh Allen's arm in the regular season. They can kind of just cruise passing the ball.
Yeah.
And once you get to the postseason, or even if you want to pass a lot in the regular season, you can lean on Derrick Henry in the playoffs. So you can do one or the other.
We've seen him win the playoff game versus the Ravens. So,
yeah. I mean, single-handedly he can win you games, and I think he still has 2 or 3 high-level years left.
Yeah.
But we did have an argument in the group chat that my point was that a running back in today's game can't be your best player if you want to win a Super Bowl.
Right.
There was, I guess, rebuttal to that, saying some people were saying that Nick Chubb or Derrick Henry can be your best player on a team. But if the Browns win the Super Bowl this year, Nick Chubb's not the best player. He's not the second best or third best player. You have Myles Garrett and Deshaun Watson, your quarterback and the defensive end. My point is you can't win with the running back as your best player. Even if the Bills, or the Titans, I'll say this, the Titans are going nowhere if they keep Derrick Henry. Might as well trade him. And Derrick Henry goes to a team where he's not the best player. So it works out for both sides. I believe it could work, but I'm going to say that he does stay with Tennessee as a for-lifer kind of. And if not, then he gets moved next offseason. Austin Eckler is another back that he came out and he demanded a trade, unlike Derrick Henry, but he demanded a trade. It's very surprising to see, but we talked about it earlier. He wants his money, and for that reason, I believe since he's been with Los Angeles since I can't remember the back they had before him, but I believe he gets his money from Los Angeles.
Yeah. They had Melvin Gordon behind.
Yes, that's who it was.
And then he held out, and then Austin Eckler, he really, came into the spot, took that spot, and we haven't heard anything since. I think this is definitely one of those things where he feels like that everything he's done since taking that starting position over to now, he deserves that, he feels like, hey, I've done this. Look at my body of work. Look at my track record. Look at the consistency. It's all been there for the most part. I think I deserve this much money. They probably said, hey, we're trying to build a championship team, so, we got to lower that a little bit to try and fill other areas. And he, just like he should probably do, say, hey, I want my money. So I have him, if the Chargers don't end up trading him, I believe that he should go to a team, or he'll get traded to a team, probably maybe like the Patriots. You get a backfield threat back there with Mac Jones. It'll make his life easier for the screen passes because that's all they do.
Yes.
But it'll make Mac Jones' life easier. You'll see probably a step forward when you have a receiving back there. A safety valve. I think it'll make life easier for the both of them.
Yeah, I mean, I have him going back to the Chargers just because I believe I don't know, I can't see Eckler in another jersey, but that'd be an interesting yin and yang, I guess you could say, with Ramondre Stevenson and Austin Eckler in that Patriots backfield, and the Patriots no longer have Matt Patricia as their offensive coordinator, so they're not going to play like a defensive coordinator is calling the plays. Hopefully, right?
Right.
They're not just running the ball and throwing screen passes the whole game. They're going to attack downfield with a quarterback they drafted to do that, to attack downfield. I haven't gone to the Chargers, like I said, but I would like to see a Patriots fit there. But moving on, again, I have someone staying home. Dalvin Cook, he's up for trade. And Minnesota's falling apart. They lost Eric Kendricks and a bunch of other pieces. Harrison Smith is reportedly going to be cut here today. But Dalvin Cook, I believe he's on he has a couple years left on his contract as he signed a big one either last offseason or the prior. But I believe he's going to come back to Minnesota. They're going to try and compete yet again this year. But with all the pieces they've lost, they're just not going to be able to.
Yeah, and like I said before, with these people in the trade block, these are just teams that I think would be the first ones to go after them. I'm not necessarily saying, hey, they're going to be traded here. This is just if they end up being traded. I believe that I believe he'll end up going to. I think Philly will definitely go and throw what they have at him. They have the first rounder, they have the draft capital, everything to go do it. And I believe, if you don't keep Miles Sanders, you can go get Dalvin Cook. Another thing, help out their offense. Not that they, need that much more help than what they already have, but it'll definitely boost what they have. They have the assets to go get them. So, hey, why not go get somebody named Dalvin Cook?
Absolutely. I mean, super talented back. I wouldn't mind seeing him in Buffalo. Maybe a reuniting with his brother, James Cook, over there. But we'll talk about that in just a second. Here with Kareem Hunt, I have him going to the Denver Broncos. Let me explain. Javonte Williams, we know he's coming off of an ACL injury. He's going to be out probably until week 2 or 3 of this upcoming season. But Hunt, Kareem Hunt, he wants to be that number 1 running back again. I just don't see it. I don't see him getting the money that he wants and having the role that he wants unless he goes to a team like Buffalo. But Sean Payton, he loves his running backs just like he had with Mark Ingram and C.J. Spiller, like he had with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. Basically, I'm saying that they love their running backs. Sean Payton does, excuse me. So he's going to get it here. He's going to get the power back at Javonte Williams. He's going to get a more of a receiving back in Kareem Hunt. I think the yin and yang is perfect. The 1-2 punch is dangerous. And they're both going to be fresh come playoff time if they can turn Russell Wilson around.
Yeah, and I have him going to the Raiders. Pretty much for that same reason. He's a good opposite of Josh Jacobs back. Josh Jacobs, we all know, is that old-fashioned power back. He's going to get in there. He's going to run and get you some yards. Kareem Hunt, he's more elusive. He's more shaky. He's more, He'll get by you with. Don't get me twisted. He does have that power. He can be like that. We've seen him do it plenty of times. But it's not necessarily his style. He lines up in the slot. He'll get you a screen catch, take it 10, 15 yards. That's what he'll do. I think he'll go there because the Raiders, they'll probably try and not that they need more weapons around Jimmy G, but they'll try and put more around them. They'll try and keep themselves in contention while they'll try and figure out their quarterback for the future, what they want to do as far as that goes. And I believe that Kareem Hunt, he'll be a solid fit in that area.
Miles Sanders, next up, he's the last running back I believe we have here today for the main guys. But I have him going to the Dolphins. The Dolphins, Raheem Mostert's gone. You have Myles Gaskin, he's gone. So they need a running back. I think Miles Sanders, he wants his money. Miami has a little bit of money they can afford to give Miles Sanders. And I believe it could be a short contract, maybe a 2 or 3 year deal for Sanders. And I think he just looks good in the teal and orange.
Yeah, I had him going to the Bears. I had him going because I believe David Montgomery is probably going to leave. And ironically, I think I had him going to the Dolphins for the same reasons you just said. But, I think Miles Sanders has definitely proven he's capable of existing in a backfield with a scrambling quarterback, a run-first quarterback. Justin Fields, we all know he was 64 yards away from breaking the rushing record for QBs in a season. So, they'll definitely look to. I believe Chicago will definitely look to sign somebody with Miles Sanders.
Absolutely. Miles Sanders is, he fits the zone scheme that Miami likes to run. That's why I had him going there. I also, another team, I thought about Buffalo, because they need a running back. But I believe that Buffalo believes in James Cook. I believe they still want to throw the ball as much as they have been in prior years. But Miles Sanders, Dolphins, you have him going to the Bears. Moving over to receivers, we have Odell Beckham. Might be the most coveted free agent this offseason. We'll have to see, depending on a name we'll get into in just a second. But I have the New York return. I have the New York emergence for the Jets here continuing. And we're going to get the Jets here are my prediction for Odell. And Odell, he's rumored to want to return to New York. This time it's just going to be with the Jets. And right as of now, as far as my predictions, he's joining Aaron Rodgers. So that team, the Jets are looking to trade Elijah Moore because he doesn't want to be there anymore. So you're going to have Rodgers, Garrett Wilson, Odell, and another weapon that I'm going to mention later on.
Yeah, and I have Odell going to the Cowboys because as much as we know about Odell since he's been in the league, he is definitely a big city type person. He wants to play under the brightest lights where the biggest stars play. He goes to LA, wins a ring. He got drafted to the Giants, made the one catch, and ever since then he's just he's been Odell Beckham Jr., OBJ. So I have him going to the Cowboys. We know the Cowboys had interest around him before the cutoff this past season, and there were just the reason they didn't go ahead and Jerry Jones and
failed his physical, right?
Yeah, I think he failed his physical. They were just worried about his ACL recovery. I think they were saying that he might not have even been able to play that season, and they didn't want to sign him to a contract where he couldn't even play when they got him. So, rightfully so, they decided to hold off. But, he'll definitely have more suitors now. But I believe the Cowboys still are in that mix. I believe Jerry Jones is going to do whatever. He's going to work his magic to try and get names like Odell Beckham Jr. to come join the Cowboys.
Absolutely. We know Odell likes to be under the brightest lights. And I think either of these situations work for Odell because we know he's coming off that ACL injury or the knee injury. And we know Odell has mentioned in the one podcast he was on that he only likes to play in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Not saying that he's going to do that when he returns, but let's say he wants to play a week, take a week off.
Mm-hmm.
Play a week, take a week off, just to preserve his body for the longer runs in the playoffs because Odell does want a longer contract.
Right.
I think either of these teams, whether if he's with Rodgers and Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson and that talented Jets defense, or with Jerry Jones, Dak Prescott, Zeke, Tony Pollard, that very talented Dallas overall roster, he's going to be able to take those breaks that he needs to preserve his body.
Yeah.
But moving over to Adam Thielen, I have him going to the Bills. Here's my reasoning. Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, they were once teammates in Minnesota. We know the Minnesota Miracle or Minneapolis Miracle, whatever they called it. But the reason Diggs left Minnesota is because he hated being the second fiddle to Adam Thielen. That's what Diggs felt at the time. But this time, there's no doubt if they reunite. We know Diggs is the better receiver. We know he's the man over there in Buffalo. And if they get another talented receiver like Thielen, they already have chemistry on the field. They're going to be able to work just as well as they were in Minnesota, if not better, now that Diggs has taken another step than when he was in Minnesota. They love each other. They both said that they want to reunite. Buffalo needs a number two receiver. That's why I have him going there.
Yeah, and that's I think that's definitely a good possibility. I had him going to the Seattle Seahawks. I had him going there because, unbeknownst to me, since a couple of days ago, I didn't know that he was actually a Seattle native. At this point in his career, I think he'd probably want to, probably play, if he hasn't done it already, probably play closer to home, have family come to see him. And I believe that he actually, it benefits Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. You put him another weapon out there, somebody who can create his own separation, get catches. It takes a lot of pressure off of those two receivers. They just paid Geno Smith. Even if they go and draft a QB in the draft a QB in this upcoming draft, I think Adam Thielen would definitely be a good safety valve at anywhere he plays.
Yeah, I think Seattle's trying to rebuild through the draft and bring some younger talent in, and bringing in a guy like Adam Thielen could mentor the younger guys, and not to mention they have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. That trio would be insane. Moving over, DeAndre Hopkins. This is where things get crazy. I have him going to the Kansas City Chiefs. Might be my craziest prediction, But Kansas City, they need an alpha receiver. They need that number one. And Hop, he's not under contract for, I think, only 1 or 2 more years. I don't believe the asking price would be crazy for Andy Reid to go out and make this move. I will say this. Nobody thought that it was a Belichick type of move to go out and get Randy Moss, late in Randy Moss's career. No, people don't believe this is an Andy Reid type of move. He never trades for these big guys. He kind of has the mid-tier guys that turn into stars. But that Randy Moss move, nobody thought it would happen. Nobody thinks this is going to happen. I believe Kansas City can go out there, get their alpha, number one receiver. And, maybe it's just bias, but can you imagine a trio of Mahomes, Kelsey, and DeAndre Hopkins?
Yeah, it'd literally be unstoppable. I don't
want to see Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, I don't want to see that, so I have him going to Baltimore. Like I said before, like we both said, I believe Lamar Jackson stays in Baltimore at least for this upcoming season, and I believe that if he stays, they'll definitely go out and look for his number one receiver, get him a true number one that he hasn't really had his career. I think D-Hop, mixed with Rashad Bateman at the number 2, Mark Andrews as your receiving tight end. I believe, and with a new offensive coordinator this year, I believe that look of those 4 players would be really good this season. Not to mention they still have J.K. Dobbins. We might be able to expand on what Lamar's passing style has looked like, especially with a new coordinator, and we could definitely see a new level of the Baltimore offense unlocked with a receiver like D-Hop.
I sure hope so. With to show the world how talented Lamar actually is. Is he the most accurate passer? Is he Aaron Rodgers' level of accuracy? No, but he can get there.
Yeah.
And it all starts this season, I believe. Getting a number one would definitely help. Dalton Schultz, he's the only big tight end we'll cover today. We'll get into Gesicki a little later on. But my reasoning here, I had him go to the Chargers, was last season you watch the Chargers, they have a lot of good receivers and they have a lot of good running backs. What they're missing is that blocking, receiving tight end that can kind of do it all. And I believe... Look, Gerald Everett, he had a good season for the Chargers. He filled what they needed. But Schultz is a better player, and if you can upgrade, why not upgrade? Dalton Schultz makes his offense just that much more dangerous, in my opinion.
Yeah, I had Dalton Schultz. It's kind of weird. It's kind of crazy, but I had him going to Indy solely for the fact that, Indy is definitely, they're going to, draft one of these top QBs, and I believe that a good target for a first-year quarterback is a reliable tight end, and Dalton Schultz is he's reliable. So
not to cut you off, but they do say that a tight end is a young quarterback's best friend.
Yeah, and I believe that, Dalton Schultz would help whoever the Colts decide to draft, help their development through the season. You probably see a drastic change from beginning of the season to end of the season, especially with reliable, targets like Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, and I mean, the Chargers, from my point, we know the injury concerns they've had with Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. Dalton Schultz is an Iron Man. That's why he was going to throw. I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah.
But moving over to the big boys, the offensive lineman, Orlando Brown. He's one of the big names that are still on the board. Surprisingly, he wasn't franchise tagged by the Chiefs, but the Chiefs went out there and just re-signed, or they went out there and got Jawan Taylor. But Orlando Brown, I think I love this move for the Bears because you're already committing to Justin Fields. You need to get him some help up front. Make sure he doesn't have to run for all those rushing yards you talked about earlier. Make sure he doesn't have to run for his life every play or feel like he doesn't have 2 seconds to sit there, read the defense, and make a throw. Get his blind side, get Orlando Brown on that left side of the offensive line.
Yeah, I have him going to the Chicago Bears, same reasons you just said. Obviously, Chiefs signed Jawan Taylor, so they're kind of
retooling already.
Yeah, they're walking Orlando Brown out the door is pretty much what it feels like. And like you said, Chicago definitely could probably offer the most money to Orlando Brown. You protect Justin Fields. We get to see the Justin Fields from Ohio State that we saw, beautiful passing, form, style, everything. Just unlocks the Bears' offense even more.
Yeah, that's what was surprising last year was because coming out of college, he wasn't looked at as a runner. And in the league, he's just been nothing but that.
Right.
So let him get back to his traditional play, preserve his body for your franchise quarterback, hopefully. Moving over to Fletcher Cox, the defensive side of the ball, I have him returning to Philly. Simply put, he's a Philly for-lifer. Last season, he was cut by Philly because they didn't want to pay him, and he decided to return for less money. He is committed to the city. He's committed to the team. I believe he's a Philly for-lifer.
Yeah, I saw an article where he said the reason he didn't, I can't remember, he signed with somebody for like 48 hours last year, and then he said, no, I'm going back to Philly, and the reasoning was he bleeds green. So, he definitely is a Philly for lifer, but I believe that this time around the same thing won't happen. I think that he might go. I have him going to Chicago for, at least a year. Help a Chicago team that is doing everything they can to drastically improve. It seems like overnight. I believe he'll be a nice veteran addition. You just signed your two inside linebackers. You're heading in the right direction if you're Chicago and you can get Fletcher Cox.
Absolutely. Frank Clark is up next. He's another guy that was a part of this championship-winning Chiefs team. He's been there for a couple years, but now he's a free agent. The Chiefs have no interest, or at least they haven't shown interest yet in bringing him back. But, it's always on the table. We've seen a lot of things happen. For the reason that you had with Fletcher Cox, the money's on the table. I believe the Bears bringing in edge rusher and Frank Clark. Short contract, I believe, because they're going to have to pay Justin Fields. They're going to have to pay all these other guys. Maybe a 2 or 3 year deal for Frank Clark. But where do you have Frank Clark going?
I have him actually staying in Kansas City. I know they haven't shown, as much interest in him as I probably would have liked for me to pick this team. But, you can say the same thing about a few other people that the Chiefs haven't shown interest in that they had on their team for this past Super Bowl run. So I believe that at some point or another, they'll probably say, hey, look, Frank Clark, he did win the Super Bowl with us. So, hey, we're gonna, we've seen what he can do next to Chris Jones. So we're going to keep him there. Take some pressure off of Chris Jones at the middle of that defensive line. And, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of thing.
Exactly. I mean, the Chiefs have been known to just kind of retool, not rebuild.
Right.
And I don't understand why they wouldn't want to bring Frank Clark back. Even for a 1 or 2 year deal, squeeze all of the prime that you have out of Frank Clark and move on then. But maybe they're seeing it as it's that time already.
Yeah.
Za'Darius Smith is up next, and this is another short contract situation. I believe, just like last year with Minnesota, where he was released by Green Bay, signed a 1 year deal with Minnesota, or 2 year deal, I believe, and he, it was a prove-it year. And he went out there and led the league in sacks, or pretty close to it, I believe. But Za'Darius, he still wants to compete. He wants to compete at a high level. Kansas City, in my predictions, are going to lose Frank Clark. So fill the edge rusher spot. Go get Za'Darius Smith. And boom, just like that, you have DeAndre Hopkins, Za'Darius Smith to add to the talented team Kansas City already has.
Yeah, that's like a Madden Ultimate Team right there.
You would think
all
so.
Of this happens, but I have him actually staying in Minnesota. I know he demanded a release, a couple of days ago. But so far Minnesota hasn't shown any interest in granting him that request. I believe that he'll at least play this season, finish out his contract, and then whatever happens next offseason, that's for next offseason. But if the way the Vikings are potentially losing players and have lost players already, I don't believe that they'll let Za'Darius Smith kind of just walk for pretty much nothing. I believe they at least keep him for on contract for this year around.
Yeah, I mean, maybe even they trade him.
Yeah, it could be. Get something for him.
Right. But moving on, Lavonte David, one of the most surprising names that I didn't expect to see in the free agency pool this offseason, but he doesn't look like he's going back to Tampa. Right now, for surprisingly, he's not with Tampa. He's been a for-lifer there. It's just like Aaron Donald with the Rams and just like Fletcher Cox. These are the kind of players that I want to see just finish their career with the teams that they've been on for 10-plus years. But Lavonte David, Tremaine Edmonds is out the door. He went to Chicago. Buffalo needs a commander in the middle. They need the green dot, the guy that can command the defense and play great for them. All season long, be a great tackler, zone coverage backer. Lavonte David, he's going to Buffalo. He's going to play in the cold weather, which is going to be different for him. But he's going to command that Buffalo defense and compete at a high level.
And I have him going to the Miami Dolphins. I think that, especially questions around Tua's health, and probably where they can hit offensively because of that. I believe that this is why they've definitely been focusing on their defense, pulling off a trade for Jalen Ramsey. They still have Xavier Howard. I believe they go and get Lavonte David. Like you said, he'll bring that command to the defense. Jalen Ramsey's played on a Super Bowl winning defense, so he knows what it takes. I believe I had somebody else later on going there as well, and I believe that they really get a really, really, really solid defense to try and make up for the offensive firepower that they might be lacking this season if they don't have if Tua is unable to stay healthy.
Tua turned the ball over. Moving over, another veteran linebacker, Super Bowl champion. Bobby Wagner, his longtime Seahawk, played last year with the Rams. Obviously, the season flopped, but he's a free agent again. Yeah, he wants to compete to everything that I have, I've understood throughout the articles and stuff like that. Bobby Wagner still wants to compete. I believe he goes to Dallas. He's a big name, goes to Dallas, can be their middle linebacker that they need. Maybe they bring back Leighton Vander Esch. That's going to be a question for Dallas. But he's going to be that green dot. He's going to be that commander in the middle of your defense to pair with Trevon Diggs and to pair with Micah Parsons. It takes pressure off Parsons, and I believe it's a great move for both sides.
Yeah, I believe that, I have him going to the Cowboys for all the reasons you just said, and I believe that, the Cowboys, they definitely, obviously their goal is they always have, it feels like they always have a capable roster of making the Super Bowl, but I feel like, especially this year, you see the disappointment they've had in the playoffs these past couple of years. This year, they'll probably go out and get, some of those, the aged vets. I won't say like the older, but the aged vets that'll definitely be able to make an impact. I had somebody else going there later on too, but, Bobby Wagner does just that. Like you said, he takes pressure off of Micah Parsons, and they feel like, this, if they can get Odell Beckham, if they can get Michael Parsons, if they can get another corner later on, they'll definitely feel like, this was the make it or break it season.
You mean Bobby Wagner? Sorry.
Yeah. Bobby Wagner. I'm sorry, I don't know what I said, but yeah, they'll definitely, benefit off of this.
Adds a different element to their defense, without a doubt. But moving over to the cornerback room, we have Darius Slay. This would be via trade, as some other guys we've seen today, but the Eagles have given Darius Slay permission to seek trades with other teams to see maybe, where he could go. I could see a Cincinnati making a move because they do need a corner. I could see Miami making a move, but maybe not now because they do have Jalen Ramsey. But I believe Darius Slay, they got to the Super Bowl last year. There's no point, like you said, if it's broke, don't fix it. Darius Slay, he's going to return for at least this season, and they're going to try and compete because they do have a lot of their players right now.
Yeah, and like I said, this is another situation where it's like, if he gets traded, this is where I believe he'll go. I don't believe that the Eagles were going to be like, hey, this is first offer we got, so you're going to go there. But if they do decide to go ahead and move on from him, I believe that the Chargers should go and aggressively go after him. We see what J.C. Jackson was with last year. He wasn't what they thought they were going to get when they signed him. I believe that if you put Darius Slay back there with them, maybe he can improve upon his year last year. It'll bolster their defense even more. They'll definitely have some playmakers on that side of the ball. All they want to do is be able to finally compete for a Super Bowl, and I think Darius Slay definitely helps them in the secondary for that.
Yeah, J.C. Jackson was a bit underwhelming last year, which is the cornerback they paid last offseason. So if they can bring in a Darius Slay, he's no doubt a top 5 corner in the NFL today. But Marcus Peters, he's another great corner. It feels like not too long ago he was that rising star on the Chiefs that led the league in interceptions. But he's been with Baltimore for a couple years now, and he's a free agent now. Yeah, I believe what happens with Lamar will depend a lot, or will change what happens with Marcus Peters. But if Lamar returns, I can very well see Marcus Peters returning on a short 1 or 2 year deal, unless if Lamar gets signed to a bigger 3 or 4 year contract, if they restructure it and he's signed for a longer deal, then I can see Marcus Peters doing the same. But if Lamar's going to play under this non-exclusive tag, Marcus Peters wants to compete. So I believe he does return on a 1 or 2 year deal. Yeah,
and like you said, you feel like he was just like that corner that everybody was talking about, leading the league in interceptions, doing what he do. He was definitely a high risk, high reward type of defender. If you didn't get the pick, you run the risk of getting a touchdown scored on you. But it's still Marcus Peters. He still helps any secondary. With that being said, I have him going to the Cowboys. Cowboys secondary was pretty much depleted all of last year. They didn't have the backups. They didn't have the depth at that position. And like I said, if you go out and get Bobby Wagner, you go out and get Odell, you go out and get Marcus Peters for at least a year. I believe this definitely helps the Cowboys any way, shape, or form. Take depth where you can get it.
It might seem crazy on paper because you have all these guys going to the Dallas Cowboys, but teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, where I had DeAndre Hopkins going, teams will find a way to restructure some deals or make some room for some contracts, cut somebody. They'll find a way. So I think Dallas has more money than Kansas City.
And when I say like Bobby Wagner and Marcus Peters, I believe that they'll only be there on like 1 year deals. So
veteran minimums. Peters, I think, he's worth more than Bobby Wagner at this point. Multi-year deal, couple 7 figures or 8 figures rather. But Marcus Peters would be exciting to see where he goes. Great cornerback, very underrated. I'll say that. But C.J. Gardner-Johnson, possibly the most coveted free agent here this offseason, not named Lamar or Aaron Rodgers. But Gardner-Johnson, he was traded last year in middle of the season from New Orleans to Philly for basically nothing. It seemed like a fleece at the time, and Gardner Johnson came out and he proved everybody right. He was a great cornerback for them. He was their number 2 for the majority of the season. Kind of transitioned to safety there once they got Bradbury. But Gardner Johnson, great cornerback. He's going to be Philly's number 1 concern this offseason, I believe. And they got to bring him back because if they're losing, they already lost Javon Hargrave. If they're going to lose, and they've already lost T.J. Edwards, but if they're going to continue to lose more guys, they need to retain at least one of their biggest pieces, and that is C.J. Gardner Johnson, especially with Bradbury going to be gone too. They need one of those guys that can maybe play corner or safety, and he does that for Philly.
Yeah, I have him actually going to the Bengals. If Philly isn't able to get the deal done, I believe that the Bengals will be a good fit for him. Players like Mike Hilton are already, trying to pitch, hey, come on out to Cincinnati, come join this defense. And, I believe he'd benefit that. Eli Apple, I think he's gone.
Yeah, he's a free agent now.
He's a free agent right now. And I'm sure they take C.J. Gardner Johnson over Eli Apple any day of the week. Even though Eli Apple, he's not a bum. He's just, there's different tiers, I guess, if you want to say that. But this will definitely help that secondary. They just lost Jesse Bates, so why not go and get somebody like C.J. Gardner Johnson, who's capable, who's shown he's capable, who's been to a Super Bowl, just like most of the people on that Bengals roster, to get the deal done.
And I mean, that brings a lot of versatility too. I'll say this. That's the interesting thing about C.J. Gardner Johnson is he can play safety, he can play cornerback, slot corner. Yeah. Maybe even a little, in the box. He's a bigger. He plays stronger than he looks. I'll say that, but. It all depends. If he goes to Cincy, he can fill a lot of roles for them, just being one player. And it'll be interesting to see where he goes. Philly, you cannot lose this one. Jordan Poyer, he's our last big free agent here on these special graphics. But I have him going to Philly. The rich get richer. They're going to lose a lot here, maybe. We know Bradbury's most likely gone, James Bradbury. But we also know that Darius Slay might be up for trade. So if you can bring back Gardner Johnson, if you can bring in Jordan Poyer, your defensive back room is still going to be there. It's still going to be dangerous, and you're going to make up a little bit of what you're losing with Jordan Poyer here.
Yeah, I have them going to Miami. I think, especially, they do have the secondary already with just Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey.
They cut Byron Jones, not to cut you off.
Oh, yeah, and I believe that, if Levante David does end up going to a team like Miami on a smaller deal, they can go out and get Jordan Poyer. He's shown that he wants to go to Miami. He wants to play. I think if you can pull off getting all 3 of these guys in the same offseason, this would definitely be a huge offseason win for Miami because of the talent they are able to bring in on the defensive side of the ball when their offense is a little bit concerning just with what they have going on with health issues and whatnot. So I think that Miami finds a way to get this pulled off. I think they're going to go all in on the defensive side of the football, make sure they commit on that side so they know exactly what they have.
Yeah, definitely going to bolster up that defense if they get all of those guys.
Yeah.
And I mean, they need it right now because we don't know what's going to go on with Tua going forward. And all we know right now is Mike White might be commanding the charge starting next year. But Jordan Poyer, interesting to see where all of these top guys go. We have some other notable names here for you guys on the screen. I'm just going to read them off. Baker Mayfield, David Montgomery, Jamal Williams, Allen Lazard, and Juju Smith. Is there one or two guys you want to talk about on this screen?
Yeah, I think Baker is interesting because we see him. He gets replaced for Deshaun Watson, then he goes to Carolina with another chip on his shoulder. We see what that ends up, and then he goes to LA kind of picks him up because they were kind of forced to because they didn't have anybody at QB.
Right.
So they pick him up. He does good on, I believe it was a Thursday night game.
Yes.
Thursday
led
night
that 99-yard drive or something.
Yeah, and then he's kind of played like Baker the rest of the season through that pick. Seattle goes to the playoffs. So I believe that Baker, he's probably going to be nothing more than a bridge quarterback, or at least somebody that you bring in to compete for your starting QB job if you don't know who you want yet. I think the Rams, for that matter, we don't know what's going on with Matt Stafford, so they're going to bring back Baker, kind of compete for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, we don't know what's going to go on with Matt Stafford because he does need to get spinal surgery if he wants to play for multiple seasons. At least that's what the doctors say. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to do what you kind of did. When we had the people that could be traded, you kind of took if they were to be traded. Mm-hmm. To me, if he's not re-signed to the Rams, a spot that I've been pitching for months now, it feels like ever since the Browns traded him. I've been saying it, when we were talks to trade him, he should go to Tampa Bay. Back then they had Tom Brady. So I was saying go and learn from Tom Brady, the greatest football player of all time, for even just a half a season. What he's going to learn in half a season from Tom Brady is more than what you'll learn probably on a 2 or 3 year contract from a Ben Roethlisberger, or one of those quarterbacks that were great and they're a Hall of Famer, but they're not Tom Brady.
Right.
That's why I was saying, Baker, go sit there and you have the weapons in Tampa. I'm still going to make that pitch. I do believe, if I had to put money on it, I do believe he's going back to LA and maybe going to learn from Matt Stafford for a year and take over then. But Tampa, go to Tampa. They still have a competent defense. Who knows? They might still bring back Levante David. And the defense is still, boom, they're right there. They re-signed Jamel Dean. Baker could step in with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, all the other talented options they have, and they won't miss a beat.
Yeah.
Or at least you would think. He can play. He can at least play on the same level that Brady was playing last season.
Yeah.
At least I'll say that. David Montgomery, I love David Montgomery. Just as a back, Monty going to Chicago, returning there, as I believe they would prefer Monty over Khalil Herbert. Any thoughts about that? Jamal Williams, I'll say this. He had 18 touchdowns last year, franchise record for them. He's going back to Detroit. I want to see that.
Yeah, I for David Montgomery, I know I have a lot of people going to to Miami, but like I said, I don't think they'll sign. Maybe they don't get all these people, but these are people I would love for Miami to go after, kind of help them out. But I think David Montgomery goes there. I can't remember who you had going there in place for that running back position, but I believe David Montgomery.
Miles Sanders.
Yeah, I believe he'll be very serviceable back there in that backfield for them. They don't really have anybody right now, so that'll help out. And Jamal Williams, like you said, he's
touchdown goblin.
Yeah, there's no way that Detroit would probably let him go, especially with what they have going on. They feel like they have something brewing, so why not keep him in Detroit?
It might be a big year for Detroit. Allen Lazard I had going to the Falcons. You had him going to the Jets. Very interesting to see where those guys will end up. Juju Smith, you have him returning to the Chiefs. I have him going to Green Bay with Jordan Love. The other side, Jarvis Landry. I have New York. They keep building. They bring in Rodgers, Odell, and now Jarvis. Jarvis and Odell want to reunite. Yeah. They join Aaron Rodgers this time. Any other names on this side that you want to talk about? We agree on Isaac Seumalo, which is the guard for Philadelphia last season, going to the Colts to build the best guard duo with Quentin Nelson over there in Indy. And Leonard Floyd going to Detroit because they do want to compete.
Yeah. I just Jarvis I had going to Jacksonville just because I feel like that they're going to lose Marvin Jones, so why not bring in another veteran slot receiver? Definitely help out Trevor Lawrence, just be that another safety valve like he was in Cleveland. He was always reliable. That's the best thing especially for up and coming QB. DJ Chark, I don't believe he'll leave the Lions. Like I said, they have something brewing there. I don't think they'll want to mess with it too much, let too many people go. Why not? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Mike Gesicki, I know the Dolphins haven't really shown interest in bringing him back. He wants to go back, so why not? I don't believe that you're going to find anybody better out there as of right now. So
as far as Jacksonville, you can only imagine Trevor Lawrence takes another step.
Right.
If not, then if he stays lateral from what he was last season, you're still getting a very good quarterback. Some people would say top 5 in the league. I wouldn't go that far, but some would say top 5 in the league. So you're getting that good of a quarterback. You're bringing in another veteran. And, who knows where Marvin Jones go, but Jarvis Landry is better than Marvin Jones.
Yeah.
Moving over to our last set of free agents here, where we do have breaking news here. We do have Jason Kelce. He signs a $14.25 million deal. Is that 1 or 2 years?
It's 1 year.
Oh, 1 year. So it's probably Jason Kelce's farewell tour.
Yeah.
Shout out to him in the New Heights podcast. That's an amazing podcast. But Jason Kelce, amazing story. I don't think we'll see something like that where two brothers are on a podcast together and they end up meeting in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. It's definitely something you probably don't even dream of. I can't imagine doing that with my siblings, and here they are doing that. So like you said, congrats to them. They're both successful, very very successful at their each individual positions. They both led to team success. So you can feel nothing but happy for them.
Yeah, Jason Kelce, one-time champion with the Eagles, been there twice to the Super Bowl. We're talking Hall of Fame career for sure. Both of the Kelces, or the Kelces rather. But the last page we do have here, James Bradberry, Shaq Griffin, Byron Murphy, Rocky Sin, and McCole Hardman. Bradberry, I guess since he was on Philly, unfortunately, we're only going to remember him for that holding call late in the Super Bowl.
And then I did it. I meant to holding him
right
after the game.
Acting like he's going to get a Gatorade sponsorship. Have one of those commercials. But James Bradberry, we both have going to Detroit. We both have Rocky Ya-Sin joining Patrick Peterson in Pittsburgh, as he's linked there heavy right now. McCole Hardman, that's an interesting one. I have him going to Green Bay because if Aaron Rodgers has moved, Jordan Love's going to need someone to throw to. Why not bring in a speedster? You have him going to Detroit. Why Detroit?
I just feel like, Detroit, if they aren't, for whatever reason, able to keep DJ Chark, they decide to let him go. You go get McCole Hardman, bring in another quality, speedy receiver that you can do that's very versatile, help that offense out. Jared Goff's he played good last year. They have a lot of talent. Put McCole Hardman next to Jameson Williams, see what you can do on the outside. You can create for a lot of down the field playmaking, and then Byron Murphy I had going to Philadelphia just because if they end up trading Darius Slay, James Bradberry goes to the Lions. You bring in Byron Murphy, kind of make up for like you said a little bit. Well, Jordan Poyer make up for a little bit of what you're losing.
Right. And I mean, Byron Murphy's 25 years old. We were talking about it before the show. It seems like he's 30.
Yeah.
Or, he's been in the league forever. Maybe it's just because Arizona has been underwhelming. Besides, they had that one good year where they started like 8-0.
Yeah.
But Byron Murphy's set for a big payday, and maybe he gets it with Philly. But if you're good, I mean, if there's any other free agents you want to talk about,
I think we hit on all of them.
I think the only other thing I want to mention is Alan Lazard. I had going to Atlanta to pair up with Drake London.
Yeah.
I think that would be a very interesting fit.
I had him going to the Jets,
yes.
Especially, all the rumors out there that the Aaron Rodgers deal is done. They go out, get him one of his receivers. They'll Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, Aaron Rodgers. You're stacking up your team. You're going to be really, really good next year.
Yeah, Jordan Love's going to need somebody to throw to. But unfortunately, Alan Lazard, for both of us, is not going back to Green Bay. But that's going to do it for today's show. Again, I'm going to say this. I mean, it was a longer episode, so if you're still here, you're a real one. But make sure, if you guys enjoy what you're seeing / hearing, be that 100 subscriber. Help us get to 100 subscribers, as I'm hoping we get that today.
Yeah.
But, we're on the road to 100. We need 9 or 10 more, something like that. But you guys have been amazing. We're growing at a rapid pace, and we couldn't be more grateful. But until Thursday, Thursday, you want to give us a quick preview, as I think you all in the world can imagine what's going to happen, as a lot of brackets will be filled out. But let us know what's going on Thursday.
Yeah, think about your favorite March Madness moment, whether it's UNC versus who I can't even remember who they played that year, but
yeah, you're good.
Yeah, just think about your favorite March Madness moment. The 07 Florida Gators winning that.
Joakim Noah, Al Horford, Corey Brewer,
Christian Laettner for all the old,
yes,
the older fans. We'll have something special. We'll give our predictions, who we think is going to make it. This college season has been very unpredictable, to say the least. There's been a lot of big things happening in college basketball. So
yeah, I'll say we keep up with the big games. We'll keep up with the big games, but like all the the underdogs, like Charleston made it. I couldn't tell you a player on Charleston's roster, but this is the time to figure out, right? So I mean, we're gonna be a bunch of casuals up here predicting the bracket, and sometimes that's makes for good. Well, one makes for good content, and
I'm gonna go based off of the amount of 5 stars and I'm playing.
That might Charleston's not gonna get out the first round. But that's going to do it for today's show. Oh, right. But we'll see you guys Tuesday, or Thursday. I don't know why I skipped a week. But we'll see you guys Thursday with some March Madness brackets. Just be prepared for that, as it might be a longer episode, but maybe not, as we might fly through our brackets. But until Thursday, stay happy, stay healthy. Thank you for another episode. Help us get to 100 subscribers. We're out.